Jaime. Can you just say something about yourself in terms of maybe a minute on the sort of work that you do?
Okay, good. Well, I am a community worker, and I have spent quite a few years working in Broadmeadows now, which is a pretty disadvantaged area of Melbourne. And yeah, a lot of the work that we do is with young people as well. So a lot of tutoring and helping some kids out.
Okay, excellent. And you're mainly working with disengaged groups?
Well, no, we work with everyone. There's actually lots of really engaged young people who also come. But we do have a bit of a focus on young people who are perhaps on that disengaged side of the spectrum.
Okay, good. So I've asked you here today to have a chat to me about masculinity. I've invited you because I think that you represent something that's perhaps a little bit different to the average man in the way that you live and the way that you think about yourself. I think that you add a lot of value to our community, and I think that you work probably in what I would view as a non-traditional way, but given that I'm 62, maybe I'm out of touch, maybe there are millions of men out there like you. However, look, I think you have a lot to offer other men, particularly young men as a role model. And so I'm going to ask you a few questions, and you're free just to answer those as you like, but we'll try to limit it to about 15 minutes.
Great.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks, Jaime. So my first question is, what is important about masculinity?
Oh, we start with a tough one, Peter. I actually, after quite a lot of thought about this, I have come to realize that I think masculinity is something that we slowly will have to get rid of, because I don't think it's useful to anyone to think about, masculinity or femininity. And in fact, a lot of the advances that our society has made lately are about letting people express their individuality as they are. So, talking about, same-sex marriage and sexual freedom and gender diversity and all of those things. And, more and more we're finding that almost every person is quite different. Now, however, I do think that if we're going to use some of these concepts, I think perhaps we can rescue some of the things that have been traditionally thought of as masculine, and I guess maybe repackage them or rebrand them a little bit. So some of the things that I would take around that would be things around responsibility, things around courage, and I don't necessarily mean courage to just go and fight or whatever we need to do, but perhaps it's courage to actually look at yourself and seeing that you need help, and that you can't do things by yourself, and that you're vulnerable and all of those things. I do struggle with the concept of masculinity, because it doesn't really mean much to me. I know I'm a man, but I think more and more you find that can be expressed in lots of different ways. I do think I do quite a lot of things that men do. I enjoy exercise and being physically active and all of those things, but many women do as well. So again, So
would you like to see the word masculinity just not to be used at all? Is that what you're suggesting? Do you think that word
I guess
is a fossil in some way?
I think it will be a fossil eventually, and I think at the end of the day, we use terms like that when they are useful to our lives somehow. I can't think of a time in my life where that term is really useful, because I actually don't define myself as a man. I perhaps I'm a bit more comfortable just thinking of myself as a human or whatever. I don't find that it adds anything to my life, but again, I think that's quite different to lots of people, and lots of people. I think adolescence and that period is very much around what it means to be a man, and people want to fit in as that. And I think, perhaps for that reason as well, some work can be done around positive concepts that you could associate to masculinity. But I mean, in my own personal life, I don't use that.
I read recently that the way that men are socialised in our Western society, for example, here in Melbourne in Australia, and I know you were socialised in Spain, but that it might be similar there. The way that we've been socialised means that as men, we've got a much more narrow set of options to women. That because women are socialised to be more, I guess, collaborative, and they gather networks of other women around them, it gives them a kind of a broader range of models and ways of being emotionally, and also in a lot of different ways. And I was interested in that because I've always felt that, I suppose I hadn't thought about it, and it seemed to me that because women were oppressed by a patriarchy, that they must have a more limited range of options. But I thought that was an interesting twist for me, different perspective.
Yeah, well, I can see where you're going with this. I mean, I do think that the sort of patriarchal, I can't even pronounce the word, patriarchal model that we have. First of all, I think let's name things. It's oppressive to women, and it still is to this day. However, I think I do agree with you that it tends to limit men's options. In fact, limit and restrict, and they make us less advanced beings because we're not encouraged to use to be in touch with our emotions, to use our emotional intelligence. And again, I'm talking traditionally here. Whereas, even in the range of things that little girls can do when they are growing up, they can do all the dancing and the ballet and all of those things, and then when they decide to pick up a stick and do a bit of fighting, that's sort of acceptable. Whereas if that situation is reversed and the boy is the one who wants to wear a dress and do some dancing, it's all sort of unacceptable. So I do think that there's that restriction. Now, I don't think we need to see that as men being victims of society. I think it's the opposite. I mean, that restriction actually is what really plays out in the oppression of women when we grow up, I think.
It does limit men as well, doesn't it? I mean, from my own experience, I know that I have a very different way of being in the world, I suppose, on the inside. But going to a traditional boys' school, 1,300 kids, back in the 60s, it was dangerous to express a lot of the things that I felt and wanted to express. And so I learned to just close down, I suppose, and just show the world a very limited view. But I couldn't take on the violence and the aggression that a lot of young men do when they're limited by those models.
Yeah, I mean, I think the current model restricts everyone. I mean, restricts the potential of men to express themselves in lots of different ways, and yet obviously restricts the potential of women to actually achieve their full potential.
Absolutely.
I mean, in all sorts of different ways. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that poor men.
No.
I understand that women are definitely oppressed by the current culture that we live in. You've just got to look at things like their participation in the executive level of organisations, the disparity between pay, etc., etc. Men definitely benefit from a power and a financial point of view, and that's changing, and that makes me feel optimistic. The other thing that makes me feel optimistic is the range of ways that men can now express themselves in society compared to when I was a boy, for example. And I think we have a lot to be thankful for from the second wave feminist movement and also gay rights and.
I have a couple of friends who have a son. He's probably about 4 years old, and he wears a skirt and he dances around the house. And the first time I saw that, I was a little bit confronted by it. Not confronted. I mean, I was a bit shocked. And then I actually, thinking about it a bit more, I was actually thinking that boy is probably the first boy I have seen in my life who's actually growing up completely free. I was trying to think of what if my boy had wanted to do some of the. My boy has played dress up so many times, but again, to consistently sort of dress up with a skirt or to wear pink sandals or whatever it is, and I was thinking, good on them and good on him, because first of all, I don't think it has any influence on anything in the future, but I think again this person is going to grow up to become free. I think that's what a gift.
Do you think I've seen that too, and I've seen that over a long period of time. And then I see boys going to school and they close down when they hit school, and then when they hit secondary school, there's another kind of closing down for a lot of them. For a lot of them, they open up and blossom. Do you think boys have to learn protective behaviours to survive within a masculine society or a patriarchal society?
Well, again, I think it's what you said. You just sort of
that little boy wearing his dress down the street when he's 12 or 13,
exactly.
for example.
At school. Well, I guess 15 years ago at school it would have been a nightmare. I think things are changing quite quickly, and hopefully it can be different. But certainly there are lots of places where it would be a nightmare for him to actually go to school, and then you sort of have to restrict your range and just behave like everyone else. And then again, what that does to you, I'm not entirely sure, but it cannot be that good.
It seems like it's kind of edging forward, nudging forward, tiny little steps at a time. And I want to ask you about yourself, and this might be a tough question. But I think it's important for young people who are viewing this to get a sense of you. What's interesting and different about you as a man, and what do you think are your unique talents?
Well, I guess one of the things that I would say about myself is that I can generally relate to people one-on-one. So people. It is easy for people to open up when I'm around, and that can happen both at a deeper level with some friends, but also it happens sort of naturally with like I was walking on the street the other day, and there was this guy walking side by side, and in 15 minutes he had basically told me his life story, and he had been going to court because there was some assault that happened and all of that, and I was thinking, how did this happen? That someone basically just would disclose all of that, and I think I do have the ability to make people feel comfortable for some reason, and I think that's something that I value.
Well, that's interesting. You say for some reason. I think you're being a bit coy there. To me, that's an important piece. What do you think it is that enabled that person to connect to you and show some vulnerability?
Well, I do think that sometimes it's quite important to, treat people like they're important and focus on the person and the moment. And again, I am quite able to do that more on a professional level.
But this guy on the street, for example, what do you think you were communicating to him that made him see that you felt that he was important?
Well, it was simply, sometimes these things are not rocket science, but it was simply, again, we were walking sort of at the same speed and we were quite close to each other, so, perhaps as a way to make everyone feel comfortable, I just sort of said hello and established some contact, and I guess one thing led to the other. And he wanted to talk. But this very much happens with young people, particularly young people who are disengaged. That idea that people think that it's very hard to deal with these people or to make contact, and the reality is it is generally very easy. All it takes is for you to be kind, to greet them, and they generally answer back in a similar way. It is quite rare that a young person is so angry that they don't want to talk to you. If you go to them with a smile on your face. In my experience, 95% of times it's been quite positive. So I guess, I mean, that's one thing that I do quite well.
I feel like we could go on talking for hours here, Jaime, but we're limiting ourselves to 15 minutes. So I'm going to ask you the question that I'm asking everyone at the end, and that is, if you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, and you had the opportunity to tell all the men out there the most important thing that you've learned in your life that might be of some benefit to them, what would that one thing be?
Oh my God. Well, I do think that there's quite a lot of value in things like try to worry a bit less about who you think you should be, or who you think other people want you to be. Trying to focus a little bit more on who you are. So for that reason, trying to know yourself, I think it's really important. And in order for that to happen, you actually have to make the time to reflect about you and to be very critical as well. And sometimes we all want to be sort of heroes, and I think perhaps this is a masculine thing as well. But I think we also have to realize that we all make mistakes. We all tell lies. We all betray people, and you have to be sort of open to that and I guess assess yourself in a realistic way. Yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot, Jaime.
No
I really appreciate your time.
Cheers.
Yeah.